Amanda here at Mindy's Craft Shack. Today I'm going to show you how to do a distressed flag tumbler. And what you will need for that is your stencil for the distressed flag, which I've got here. I'm just using a yellow removable vinyl. Remember, you do not have to have the specific color because you're actually going to do spray painting over the stencil and then take that stencil off. I have a prepared tumbler that I've spray painted white for the base. If you want to know how to prepare a tumbler, go to my link listed above on how to prepare a tumbler. I've got some masking tape because we're gonna tape off the stars so we don't have any red and blue bleeding for the tumbler. So what we're going to do is go ahead and put the stencil on and do the placement of the stars and the lines. So I've already got my stars on the transfer paper, and we're just going to set them towards the top here. And this is a pretty good curved tumbler. It doesn't have any tapered ends as far as curves. It's just pretty much a straight round tumbler, which makes it pretty easy to place those stars. And so I do use the transfer paper to place the stars, but for the lines I do that just by hand. It's just a lot simpler to do it this way for me. You can use the transfer for the lines, but there's really no need because they're just long, slim pieces. So your first line is going to actually be the red line. And so what I'm doing is just kind of putting a stencil there just as a guide so that I can place the lines directly where they need to be. And I just take it trying to get it as close as I can to that top line, and then I'm just going to pull up that one. I try to get it as straight as I can, and I do want it pretty flat. Now you do see where it does kind of bubble up. I don't want any of those like that. I want them really flat so that no spray paint goes under that line. So what I'm going to do is take my X-Acto knife and just cut that piece. And then just lay it flat. That way I won't have any bleeding underneath the stencil. And then I'm going to take this piece up I'll just use that, this as my guide to, and I just butt it up to the one above it, the stencil above it. So that one doesn't have to be perfectly flat. And then we take the next one and just continue on down the line here. And I get the ends pretty even. And then I can just take up that middle piece where it's going to be white and put it off to the side. And then just start wrapping it around. Now you can take and add more line to it so it comes all the way over, but this is more of a distressed look, so the choice is yours. You don't have to. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. For video purposes, I'm just gonna go and leave it the way it is, the length of these the way they are. I'm just going to continue on placing these lines, and so we'll go ahead and fast forward. Alright, so now I'm just checking to make sure everything is totally flat, because we don't want any paint bleeding underneath. And it looks good. So what we're going to do is, what I do is, so I don't have to go back and forth between the blue and red, is I go ahead and mask off my stars area so that I don't get blue where the red should be. You don't have to mask off the whole cup, just enough to protect where you you just want to mask off where you don't want that blue to go into. And I'm just using the, I think it's frog tape. It's just regular painter's tape. You can use the 3M blue tape if you want. Again, it's just preference. And we're just about ready to take it out to the back door and do some spray painting. All right, so I'll meet you at the back door. All right, so I've got my ink. Let's see, I've got an ink blue that we're going to use to spray over the stars. I do have a N95 mask on to protect my breathing and to protect me from the fumes of the paint, even though I am outside. With this N95, I'm starting to use this now instead of the big heavy respirator mask so you can hear me better. A lot of my other videos, it is really hard to hear me with that mask on, so I went ahead and got this N95 mask off of Amazon. It was like 20 bucks, and it's got exhaust in it, filter, all that, so it does the same as the respirator does. You'll just be able to hear me better. All right, so again, you want to stay at least 10 inches away, and I've already pretty much shook this, and so I just do short sprays, and you're just gonna go over that area, and you can see me getting closer. Try to remember to stay at least 10 inches. The reason for that is because you don't want to get any drips. Again, I do have my dish gloves on that I usually use for spray paint. That way I don't go through a lot of disposable gloves. We're going to go ahead and let this dry for a couple hours, and then I'll be back and we'll do the red spray paint. And the red spray paint is actually colonial red. So we'll be back in a bit. All right, so I'm back with our flag tumbler, and I'm just going to peel off this tape. What we'll do next, what I'm going to do is double check and make sure everything is still flat. And then we're going to take our painter's tape and I'm going to put it on the blue area here. So I am coming in just a little bit on that blue, and I will down here also. And the reason for that, because I don't want it really boxy looking. So I am going to have the red kind of go up just a little bit, so it's not just a straight line. I want it to look kind of distressed, so we will have it to where it is just not so boxy looking. All right, and so I'm gonna put on some gloves and my mask and take you to the back door and we'll start spray painting this red. I've got my colonial red, and I'm gonna go ahead and I've already checked to make sure all these are laying down flat, and which they are. And I'm just gonna go ahead and start spraying. All right, so we'll let this set for a couple hours, so we'll be back in a few hours. All right, and we're back. I've taken and let this dry overnight, and now we're just going to take off this tape and then start taking off the stencils. All right, and there you go. You have a flag tumbler with your red, white, and blue, 50 stripes, 50 stars, and 13 stripes. So next what we're going to do with this is you want it to look kind of old and raggedy looking. Alright, and then after I've taken off all the stencils, I just take a brush and I want to go down. Whoops. And just kind of rough it up a little. I've just taken some alcohol ink and if you feel like you've gotten too much in some spots, you can just take a little, it's just a little makeup sponge, and take your 91% alcohol and then just kind of go over it so it doesn't look too concentrated in some spots, and it still gives it that nice effect of being in the battlefield. Like so. I do want to get more of the stars and then just take my, let that dry a little. It really gives it that dirty. And then I don't want too wide of spots, so I just kind of go around and making sure that, you know, we have coverage on everything. I'm just picking areas to go over. There. And there you have your distressed look American flag. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and I'm going to put a coat of epoxy on it. And I've got my epoxy pre-mixed. I am wearing a mask, just to let you see. It is an N95 mask. This way you guys can hear me talking and it won't sound so muffled. And I can talk loud enough and you can hear me. So what we've got going on now is like I said, I've mixed my epoxy 1-to-1 ratio, and we're just going to start adding the epoxy onto the cup, like so. And just spreading it nice and even over the entire cup. Now remember, I do put this on a turner, but I don't turn my turner on until I've got all the epoxy on. The reason why I do that is, for me, it's just easier to get a nice even coat on, instead of having to fight against it turning, and I just like to make sure I get that nice even coat on. So while I'm pouring this, I just manually turn the turner. And just continuing. Make sure you get the bottom. You don't want to forget the bottom. And again, I just put a thin, very thin coat on the bottom. Alright, and I've got the entire cup covered with epoxy, and now I'm just going to go and just run my finger down in a swooping motion. Now I'm not pressing very hard on this. I don't want to press very hard. It's just a light skimming over the top, from top to bottom, making sure I get all that area there. Alright, so now what we're going to do is go ahead and take your flame torch and go over your cup, getting out any bubbles that might appear. Good. All right, just like so. The nice thing about this cup is you can put whatever you want on it. Make it for a veteran, make it for, a loved one that's really patriotic. You've got the elections coming up. Make it for, whatever candidate you're rooting for or voting for. So we're going to, like I said, let this turn for about 6 hours, and then I'll turn it off and let it dry for another another 6, so its curing time is 12 hours total. And then I'll be back because I do want to show you how I sand it down, and then we'll probably put one more coat on top of that. So we'll see you in about 12 hours. So I'm back with the distressed flag, and this is what it looks like after one coat of epoxy. Now I do see some pits and stuff, so it will need one more coat of epoxy. But before we add another coat of epoxy, what I want to do is sand it a little bit with 220 sanding paper. With that, it's going to make it possible for that epoxy to adhere to what's already been epoxied. You want to kind of rough it up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put on my mask. It's real simple to put on. It goes, has little hoops for your ears, and then it just velcros in the back. And I just make sure it's fit tight and that my hair allows it to, there. And then it fits over my ears just so, and it does have a nose piece that I can clip down. And so this does have a filter in it, and it has an exhaust. So, but like I said, I can see what I'm doing now with my glasses because I get to keep my glasses on. So I'm going to pull you down to the cup, and I'm just going to sand it real lightly. I don't sand it very hard. I don't put pressure on it. I just lightly go over it. And I'm going to show you that now. So I just take my I just take my sandpaper and just kind of rough it up. Make it nice and smooth. And just go the full length of the cup there. And make sure you get the bottom. Now with sanding, I do wear my mask for this, just because of the particles that can be sanded off. But you can see, I don't know if you can see it on there, but there's a pit there. And then any bubbles that you might have had, those usually get sanded down a little bit. I really didn't have any what's called fish eyes. Maybe one there. You can see it. And I just smooth it out where it's smooth. Now you see how scruffed up it looks? So once I add the epoxy, those marks are going to go away. You won't even be able to tell that I sanded it. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to go wash it off, get all that sanding dust off, and then I'll be back and we'll put the last coat of epoxy on. So I was in washing my cup and I'm like, oh, I can show them how I clean the inside of the cup after I've gotten a coat of epoxy on there. And you can tell, like, inside, spray paint has gotten in there, and there's a couple of parts where the epoxy has gone over the lip there. So I'm just going to show you real quick how I clean up that, how I clean up the spray paint from the inside and take off that epoxy. What I do to take off the epoxy, when it's just like a drop like this, I just take my weeding tool and I get under it and I remove it just like so. And then I feel around and to see if there's any other drips. And I look inside to see if there's any drips that got down there. But that's all you do is just take a pick and just pick it off. It comes off really easily. Then what I do to clean the inside is I take acetone, and this acetone that I use for inside the cups is just your normal acetone fingernail polish remover. It's nothing heavy duty. And I just take and start cleaning with a makeup sponge, and it just takes that paint right off of there. And I make sure I use a couple sponges, but I make sure I get way down in there, and it just takes that paint right off of there. And so, and I only use these cotton makeup sponges when I'm dealing with the inside of the cup. I have found if I've used it on the outside of the cup, like while I'm preparing it, the little fibers get on there and you can't even see them until you spray paint or even putting on your first coat of epoxy. It you can see it built up on there. So I only use these, like I said, when I'm dealing with the inside of the cup. And then and that's it. I've cleaned the rim, and I make sure the rim is really clean. And then I go and I use hot soapy water for in here to wash off any acetone left over. And I just run my finger over it, make sure there's no drips of epoxy. And now that is epoxy free. And so now I'm going to go wash it again, washing the inside really well. And then I'll go ahead, put the last coat of epoxy on, and then I'll show you the finished product. Like I said, I won't make you watch me putting the last coat of epoxy on. I'll just bring it back with the finished product. So we'll see you in about 12 hours with this cup. And here she is, Old Faithful herself. Now if you like this video and you want to see more videos, go ahead and hit the subscribe button for Mindy's Craft Shack and you'll get notifications of new upcoming videos. Also, don't forget to give a thumbs up. You all have a wonderful day. Love ya. Bye.